Hello, my name is John and welcome to my Gamester81 show. I find it interesting because if you were to ask an average gamer what the very first handheld with interchangeable games, what that was called, I'd venture to guess that majority of those people probably would say the Nintendo Game Boy. It's a good guess because certainly the Nintendo Game Boy was very popular. It really put a mark on what handhelds are even today, but it wasn't the first handheld with interchangeable games. The real answer to that is in 1979, Milton Bradley, who is known for making board games, actually came out with a device called the Microvision. And this is a very old school device. Don't let the name fool you because it's definitely not micro. It's not small by all means. But let's take a closer look at the system itself. Let's see some of the box, the artwork, and some gameplay. Thanks for watching. Here it is. This is the Microvision. This is what the outer case looks like. I always love the description of how they explained and the games back in the day. So let's read this together. It says programmable electronic game system includes a fast action game cartridge of Blockbuster, which is essentially a clone of a classic Atari game called Breakout. And what's interesting, on a side note, what's interesting about Breakout is it was designed by Steve Wozniak, who left Atari and joined Apple and started Apple with Steve Jobs, which is really interesting. So, but here it is. This is the cover. I loved how it explains a new concept in electronic game systems, a handheld console with interchangeable cartridges, a wide variety of game cartridges available. See back, which they only released 11 games total from 1979 to the death of the system in 1983. So saying it's a wide variety of games, that's definitely a stretch, but you can kind of see how you can take the plate off. That's the game itself, and it shows you kind of how to play. You hold it with your left hand, and then there's a knob at the bottom, kind of a turn wheel to control it. On the back, it shows you the game. There's a Microvision Blockbuster. Kind of shows you the controls. Look for 6 other game cartridges sold separately. You got Connect 4, Vegas Slots, Star Trek Phaser Strike, Pinball Bowling, and Mind Buster. Ooh. Okay, so I'm gonna show you some other games here that I have for it. I have Star Trek Phaser Strike. Okay, nothing's really on the back. Here's Connect 4, Vegas Slots, and Bowling. Okay, so I have 5 of the 11 games that were released for it. Let's open this up and see what's inside. And you can see, you flip it around and it's got instructions for Blockbuster, but it's kind of upside down. So it doesn't really make sense that they would put it that way. So you have to kind of flip it around here and it shows you the instructions as if you can't really get it. It's a really simple game to play. But anyway, you also have some packaging here inside. This is the unit system itself. On the back, this is where the battery storage goes. Here is the game Blockbuster. This is the knob on the bottom. This is the screen. Here are the buttons. Every game has certain different button layout. The Microvision actually was created and designed by a guy named Jay Smith. For those of you who are familiar with the Vectrex system, came out later in the early 80s, which is a vector style game, one of my favorite systems. It's very underrated, but he designed that. And he actually ran the company called Smith Engineering, and he came out with this. The first year this came out in 1979, Smith Engineering made an $8 million profit. It was very successful. Milton Bradley bought the rights to this, and they really published it and marketed it. So it was very successful when it first came out. It is rare today because there's several common things that happen to it. Since it's 32 years old, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong with it over the years. You get screen rot, the buttons stop working. I had a previous one. I'll show you what happened to that. You can see here how the screen, it just leaks. And once it leaks, it's kind of unavoidable. Eventually, it's going to happen. So you got to be very careful when handling these. So this doesn't work anymore. I was very fortunate to find a unit that actually works, and I got a good deal on it. And I got it with all these games and packaging and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. There are 2 different processors that were used for the system. Initially, Milton Bradley decided to go with the Intel 8021 processor. They later on switched to the ITMS 1100. Basically, the difference between the two is that the 1100 wasn't as powerful, but also didn't use as much battery life. You only needed to use 1 D battery rather than 2, and it was less expensive, so they decided to go with that. But here, I'll explain. Let me show you the battery itself, where it goes. So you have there's 2 slots here for D batteries. As I mentioned before, with the 1100, you don't need 2 batteries. So what they did was, since they already had the mold, they actually left this compartment. You actually store an extra battery there, but it doesn't necessarily run the system itself, which is really interesting. but it runs off a 9-volt D battery. And there's a slide right here. You get your Microvision number here as well, sticker. These rubber pads here that kind of help grip the system if you're laying on a table or whatnot. The games come out like this. You squeeze these right here on the side, and it slides out. So that's the game. This is what the actual system looks like without the game, and these are what the games look like. Isn't that wild? So all the memory and stuff, the games are actually stored right here. But kind of an interesting concept here, okay? And they just kind of slide in, and they snap right here. Another interesting trivia fact about the Microvision is that if you're a fan of Friday the 13th, the series, if you watch Friday the 13th Part 2, this actually makes an appearance in the movie. There's a scene in the movie where they're actually playing a Microvision. So it appears in the movie, which is really interesting. Let's turn it on. You got your power on right here. Okay, on, off. Okay, so let's power it on. It's going to be kind of hard to see the gameplay because of the reflection of the screen, but I'll do my best to show you. And the object is the ball's going to land, and you have the paddle here, and you're supposed to release the paddle there. Like this. And once you break all the blocks, you go on to the next stage. It shows you the balls you have left in the top left corner, and you just score. So you get a point for every time you hit it. Which is, you get your speed, you can change the speed. You have a number of balls. You increase the number of balls as well by pushing that. Let's show you Star Trek Phaser Strike. So I'm going to take this cartridge out, squeeze the sides here, slide it out, and put Phaser Strike on. They all have their overlays built into the games. Snaps in like so. Power it on. Object of this game is there's going to be items that go across the screen, and you have 3 different angles to fire and hit the item. So you can go from right to left, left to right, or middle. You can hit it. You can technically just stay in one spot and keep hitting it. I'm not sure how you really necessarily die. And I have no idea what this has to do with Star Trek. Go on to the next stage. I think they basically took the license from Star Trek and decided to go with this. Let's go. There's different angles you can fire from. It's easier just to hit the middle one, like that. So I don't know how you can necessarily play hours of this thing. It's very primitive in today's gaming standards, but it's definitely the grandfather of handhelds. And it was very innovative as far as interchangeable cartridges. That's pretty cool. So kudos to Mr. J. Smith for creating something like this, and for creating the vectors, because that's a fantastic system as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you soon. Take care.